there are multiple moments, which is what makes me realize they accomplished their goal, where I was holding my breath or slowly breathing to where at the end of a sequence I went, yeah. That right there means they were successful in what they wanted to accomplish in certain scenes. When you hear the audience go,
Welcome to the Untitled Film Project Podcast. Go watch the movie, then come hang out with us as we talk about Twisters. It's not a sequel, but a reboot in the Twisters universe. Storm chasers ride the adrenaline of the world's deadliest weather, tornadoes.
If you feel it, chase it! I said if you feel it, chase it!
And we'll have our big question. What is your favorite disaster movie? There's so many different types. Weather, space, viral. There's so many ways that you can look at this as a disaster movie. So we'll talk about our favorite ones.
All right. It's been since the 90s when we had the original Twister, which was a sensation, and didn't know what I was going to think about this one. What did you think, Gover?
I realized a couple weeks ago that I hadn't actually watched the original Twister since it was in the theater in 1996.
Wow.
But I remember loving it. Okay. And I remember thinking it was so fun. And so
you did?
Yeah. So I was like, you know what? I got to go back and watch that. I got to, because just for homework purposes for this one coming up, it's kind of a fun revisit. You know?
I watched it within the last year.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I was like, okay, go back and watch it. It was kind of like Independence Day, where it's super fun, highly rewatchable, but it's not, like, there's some problems with it.
It's not a great movie.
Right. But it has its issues. But I really liked it, right? So it was fun, right? So I wrote on the Untitled Film Project Pod.com that I hope Twisters learned from its predecessor's shortcomings, where the CGI wasn't really believable. Even for the time, it was like, that doesn't look real. There's just kind of things that are nitpicky. I didn't think the Bill Paxton was that great, to be honest. He has that kind of like slow, kind of like, what do you think, everybody? pacing. And it's supposed to be an intense movie, so it doesn't really work for me. Helen Hunt was amazing, but he was kind of the weak link, and he kind of carried the movie, unfortunately. So anyway, long story short is,
That was long story short.
Yeah, no, okay, fine. Yeah. In summary, Twisters did learn from the original.
Oh, okay.
I liked it better than the 1996 installment.
So he spent more time talking about Twister than Twisters.
Yeah.
As a note.
I'm setting it up.
But you went through you maybe went into more detail. I think everybody who saw there was Twisters coming out and had any memory of the original movie.
They're always going to compare to.
You're going like, I wonder, do we even need this? Do we want this? And
yeah, we wanted it.
My initial take was like, I think I do. I think I do want it. And I was genuinely satisfied in all the areas that I wanted from a new Twisters movie. That was basically the way I walked out of it.
And that's what you need. That's what this movie needs to do. It doesn't need to impress you to be an amazing movie or film or anything like that. It needs to satisfy your craving for summer blockbuster disaster.
Yeah.
And that's what this movie's made for. It's coming out in the middle of July, the peak of when people just want to go see a movie. School's going to start in a few weeks for a lot of people. People are going to get back at it. You just want to go turn your brain off and enjoy disaster. And that's what the movie accomplishes. But I will say this. I liked it more because of the heart they included in the movie. There was more attachment to some of these characters and what they went through because they actually built a character. I'm not saying it's too deep, because it's definitely not too deep, but they gave you enough of a backstory. Whereas in the first one, yes, you have Helen Hunt's dad is killed in a tornado, not able to get to the safety shelter in time.
It's the formation of her.
Yeah, formation of what she... But here you have even more of a detriment to the main character, to Kate, and what she went through and how she has trauma from that and how she has to get back into it, and you have a 180 switch in terms of the characters. And I like how they develop this a little bit more to give you more connection and heart, because at the key of it is saving people. It's not just about the science. It's about we look, the research is important, but we put that aside to save people. The people are more important.
The bottom line.
The bottom line is saving people. And that's what really made me connect more with the movie. While it's horrifying and it's a disaster movie, the heart in it made me appreciate the movie more than just a summer blockbuster disaster movie. It's because they put emotion and empathy into it.
And I think I know why. Okay, because when I found out that they were doing another Twisters, I was like, oh, okay, cool. That sounds like a lot of fun. Like that, we need this. It's been a long time. We live in an area where there's a lot of tornadoes, so like it's just something that's very interesting. And then I saw who was directing it, and it was Lee Isaac Chung. And I'm going, okay, where? What do I remember? Oh, he did the movie Minari. Okay, which is it's the story of somebody who's come to America and is trying to assimilate, and it's a heartfelt movie. And I'm going, wow, that's interesting for this is what we would call an action movie, right? And I'm going, well, that's interesting choice of directors. But then as I'm watching the movie, and I realize that the characters and the heart of this movie are way bigger, it seems, than the original, and right, and it totally informs the action and everything about it. And I was thinking, oh, he was the perfect director because he brought that human element to this blockbuster action movie, and I think that's what elevated over the top. Like, if you had great effects and you had like this amazing story, but you didn't connect with these people and you didn't feel for these people, then it wouldn't have worked. He, I think, was exactly the reason why they picked him.
Because, Jim, if you can feel it,
ride it.
Glenn Powell has charisma.
muscles.
Right? He has muscles. He's good looking. He has charisma. He's the big star we've been watching develop and become, this.
Ever since Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
There's no money here, man.
I didn't even think about that. But those things that he has in abundance were on full display in Twister. So the casting in this movie was really good.
It was.
I want to dissect your casting perfection or whatever on Daisy Edgar-Jones. She was great. Okay. I really liked her in this. But there was something missing, like an X factor. Okay. What I mean by that is on the drive home from the theater, I thought there's probably 12 different actresses that I could name that you could give that role to, and they would be just as good, if not better.
Okay.
That doesn't mean she did a bad job. It just means that, time out. How many times have Tom Hanks is Forrest Gump. There is nobody else. I know it's apples to oranges, but go beyond this. Mm-hmm. Tom Hanks is Forrest Gump. Nobody else can play that. Okay, they could have put a brilliant actor in there, but that is Tom Hanks. That's the only way you get that character at its max, right? I'll go John Malkovich in The Line of Fire. He is the assassin Booth. You can put Tom Skerritt in that role, who is a respectable actor. Not the same. John Malkovich is Booth, okay? There's countless examples of this.
But the character of Kate
could have been played by Jennifer Lawrence. That's a bad example because she's a little bit older. But my point, though, is that you can put Anna Kendrick. These are older choices, but my point, though, is that you can put them in and it would still work.
I think you just gave some bad examples for your point.
You're right. I did.
So,
because I think they'd be pretty.
You want to make your point, and we need some other ones.
Okay.
Well, throw Daisy Ridley. Could she have played it?
No, because she's older. No, but yes,
she's not that much older.
No, but fine.
she fits within the spectrum of what you're talking about.
I'm unraveling. Let me reset.
Kaylee Spaney.
Kaylee Spaney could have played it. Great.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I'm trying to help you with your point.
Sadie Sink would have been great.
Okay. Sure.
There's plenty of options. Thank you for skewing me younger.
Great young actresses.
Right. Okay. That could have, you can plug into that role and they're exactly the same.
That's fine.
So, but Glenn Powell, the charisma that Jim talked about, it's there. It's undeniable.
Because he has that it factor right now.
He has the X factor right now.
Yes.
Right.
Totally get it, yeah.
Again, please understand, I'm not saying she was bad. She was actually really good.
She was.
When she breaks down emotionally in the garage explaining why she didn't complete the job, it's great. If that's what she auditioned with, there's no question why she got the part.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not. There's something missing, and I don't know what it is.
I don't know what it is either, because I thought she was great, so I'm not looking at it from that perspective.
Me neither.
Anybody else could have played it. Yeah, Kaylee Spaney could have, and she would have done really well, but Daisy Edgar-Jones did what she needed to do.
She did.
And played the role very well.
I totally agree.
It's not that deep, Gover.
Wait, here's what I'm going to say. Here's a case where I'm going to say it's not that deep and didn't need to be. She didn't need to be like this unbelievable, standout role, right? So in the original, we have that like repartee between Bill Paxton and I'm spacing now. Helen Hunt.
Helen Hunt, yes.
Right? And they have that like, okay, they were together and they've kind of got this back and forth thing. In this movie, I don't think there's room for Glenn Powell's character, Tyler Owens, and another person that, I guess, I don't know, outgoing is probably a weak word.
You can't have a double Riz factor going on.
Right. Right. So, like, she almost needed to be a little more subdued and then slowly come along. Like, I loved the way she was out.
Balance.
She was out of storm chasing.
But related. That was what I was worried about.
She's still in weather.
They're going to introduce her as a teacher or something.
She was working with Noah.
Yeah.
So, like, she's still using her talents, but not in the, like, really flamboyant way that she was before.
And they still show that she has that it factor in terms of meteorologically, that when they say, do we need to put a warning out, she's looking at the radar. No, we'll just keep an eye on it. Like, completely overpowering what someone else was saying because she still has a way to read it. Yeah.
That she's got the science and the art of predicting what's going to happen with a tornado.
Right.
Still deep within her, but then like she has to be pulled back and let's let that go into a natural transition to Anthony Ramos, who's one of the only people from her original crew that survives. I love his character. I think what a terrific actor in The Heights and in so many other things. I love the dynamic they had between the two. I loved the fact that she still had the original Storm Chaser, let's save lives. And he, in that 5 years, he took a different path. He went the commercial route. How do we profit from this? Like, not completely, but he kind of like went to the corporate side. And they had that little push-pull throughout the movie that became very important towards the end.
Which I applauded because I think it's, one, it gives his character depth, but also because that's a slippery slope. Yeah. If you are trying to, if your team is dismantled, okay, and you love it, and you are trying to stay in the game, whatever that means in your life, and somebody comes up to you who's got some pockets and says, hey, I can give you a way to stay in it.
Yeah.
Your virtue and the reason that you're doing it is fine, and it's noble, and that's where it should be. But you then eventually blend into, well, I'm helping somebody profit off of this.
Who's benefiting from a people's disaster.
And I think certain people, maybe even myself, could sleep at night knowing that, well, yeah, he's profiting and that's horrible, but I'm making a difference. I'm I'm helping people that wouldn't be helped otherwise.
Because you're gaslighting yourself at that point.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
and that's
which is what he was doing.
That's exactly what
That's how he was burying his trauma.
For sure.
Was by doing that. It's like, I'm still saving people, but he had to get that reality check from Kate throughout it.
Yeah, Javi had to be slapped upside the head, and he didn't know everything. To his credit, he didn't know exactly how the company was profiting.
Like, he could feel the shade, but it wasn't 100% yet.
Yeah, he wasn't in on
because his partner,
the secret meeting,
was the one that was the full shade.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. So I mean, it was great because, like, okay, what is a great story, but somebody who comes back to their roots, right? And to their original character, which is somebody who cared, and he does eventually make that journey. So that was like another thing that I think Anthony Ramos brought to this movie, which is like, that was a complicated shift for a character, and I thought he pulled it off really well, as he does in most things he does.
Now, that's a character you could have just put a lot of different people in there, and it probably would have been okay.
Yes, but it's not the lead.
Call back. The weather part of this. I'm a weather nerd.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know everything. I'm not a meteorologist compared to what some people on Twitter may have thought in the past. I do have a certificate
There's a story there.
I do have a certificate for, being a weather watcher and everything too. I do have that. But
You're an enthusiast.
I'm 100% an enthusiast. And what I've seen from multiple people in the meteorology world is that they really do enjoy the movie because of the science behind it. How they take a little bit of time to try to explain the science nerd. They're talking about CAPE and CAP and wind shear and so many other jargon that a lot of people probably have no idea what it is, but they're throwing this in there because I think just like we saw with Twisters, just like we see with so many movies that deal in the science world and anything STEM related, you're going to see a boost. You're going to see a boost in young people being interested in these things. So I'm glad they put it in there. I want to get your opinion. Did you appreciate the fact that they put a little bit of science in there, even more so than the first one, that they're talking about some things and how they developed? Did that add anything to the movie for you guys like it added for me?
Go over.
I found myself questioning whether it was real.
Okay.
So
because you just don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I don't know what shear is.
Are they making it up?
Matter of fact, before I moved to Nashville in 2005, I lived in California in the Bay Area.
You're worried about the ground
shear
shaking.
is. Yeah. Yeah. Totally different. So you kind of then you hear these names, you hear these words like shear and and cap and all these things. So they were at least words that I was privy to at this point.
You heard before.
But at the same time, like, I don't know what the scientific meaning is. So when they're breaking down, like, well, in theory, it should work because it'll mess with the molecular structure of the rain and it'll dissipate the...
He's mocking.
I don't know. No, I found myself going, like, would that really
work?
Real? Or is that an 80s and 90s trick where they just make up some bullshit? And then that's the plot of the movie. We're going with it.
That's the Ghostbusters. That's,
Yeah. I love the fact that
pseudoscience, I think you call it.
I like that science was a character in this movie. Okay, like there was respect for science throughout, and like we've had, as a culture, at least in the United States, because that's only where I live, where just like science has been trashed for so long. This is a celebration of science. Right? So I think, like you said about meteorology and in general, the science of this movie, I think was very enticing. I had a rare privilege that for the screening that I went to go see for Twisters, that before the movie, a couple of local television meteorologists who were well-respected, very knowledgeable, were in the theater doing a Q&A about tornadoes and any questions you wanted to know. And so I had the added benefit of having two experienced pros explain, here's all the things that add up. Here's the conditions that need to be met for a tornado to form. And then they were talking about how deadly they are. That, like, of all the natural disasters, tornadoes are the deadliest. And I didn't know that. I figured it was like tsunamis or earthquakes or something like that.
Might have been hurricanes.
Hurricanes.
Florida just decimates Florida.
Right. But like it in many ways that you measure, they said unequivocally, it's just a deadly thing, and which only brought realism to that science that. Gover, you had wondered about, and maybe I would have done the same if I didn't have that information.
That's true. Sure, yeah.
And two, it heightened the stakes for me too, and that's what I want to ask you guys about. Is I think as opposed to the original Twister, yes, people die. There's terrible things, tragic happenings, but I don't think they were given the weight. That Twisters 2024, you lose main characters, or what you think are main characters, and you see the devastation. You see towns destroyed. You see
people sucked up into the tornado.
Yes.
Literally in the movie.
Was this more terrifying about tornadoes than the original for you?
No question.
Absolutely was.
No question.
I think if you have any sort of trauma surrounding tornadoes, you've survived one, you've been through one, this could be very triggering. It 100% could be, because you see people get sucked in, you see cars get flipped over and people die. You see more death, true death in this movie compared to the first one. Yeah. Especially right at the beginning. I mean, in the beginning of the first Twister, you see Helen Hunt's character's dad get sucked in. Here, a whole team basically is sucked away. And at the very beginning, you could tell it's something bad is going to happen because you have to set up the story somehow. How many of them were going to die? You didn't think it was going to be all of them, well, 2. So the stakes were much, much higher in this one. That's why I even labeled it in my quick review, is that it's horrifying. There is horror behind this. In a different way, not a horror movie, but science fiction, action, thriller, people do die.
All right, let's get to scores. Put a number to Twisters 2024. Glenn Powell, Daisy Edgar-Jones, and so many others. Anthony Ramos, and I think a really good cast. Who wants to throw their numbers out first?
All right, I'll go.
Bradford.
So this movie, as we discussed so much, accomplished a lot of things that I think most people wanted out of a Twister franchise movie. It was horrifying. There was some heart to it. You got disaster. You also got science. You added
Funny.
to it. Funny. There were plenty of moments where I chuckled. No, there were. When they're making some jokes and cracking, like when Kate's character is trolling Tyler's character a few times, there's some chuckle-worthy moments. Not like laugh out loud, but like a
right
kind of thing. It's enough to make you go, whew, to breathe.
Interesting.
Because there are multiple moments, which is what makes me realize they accomplished their goal, where I was holding my breath or slowly breathing to where at the end of a sequence I went,
Yeah.
That right there means they were successful in what they wanted to accomplish in certain scenes. When you hear the audience go, whew, we got through that. So I enjoyed that part. Another thing I wanted to discuss real quick was the soundtrack. The soundtrack is getting a lot of discussion and hype because it is loaded. And I think they did a great job of choosing the right songs to match with certain moments. And even if you don't realize, oh, hey, that's Thomas Rhett, oh, hey, that's Luke Combs, or hey, that's Lainey Wilson, they're using some superstar country artist and Americana artists throughout the entire soundtrack that makes it worthy of publication. It's getting a vinyl. Like a Twisters soundtrack is getting published on vinyl. But you have Miranda Lambert in there, Jelly Roll, Kane Brown, Tyler Childers. I mean, there are a lot of big names
like
on
really
the soundtrack.
Good ones.
Big names on the soundtrack. So I think it meshed together well because there wasn't a moment where I felt like the soundtrack took away from the movie either. It only added to it.
No, it was a benefit.
It meshed very, very well. And that's another addition to the original that I feel like they did even more to make the summer blockbuster worthy is by adding all these elements because the sucker's going to make money. This is going to add to the money that it's going to make because you're going to have people that just are curious about the music in it. My nitpicky thing. Okay. I do have a nitpicky thing is at the rodeo. One, it's really cool that Glenn Powell's parents follow him around and are in all of his movies. They're in the back. They're sitting right behind him.
I do love that.
In there. But the fact that a mega tornado snuck up, that right there, that's not believable to me. Because you would have more than just a minute or two warning. Typically, unless it's touching down right there, but typically you would at least have an idea that something's coming. It's whether it's night or not.
Especially when you have a camera angle from like behind, like in the stands, in the center of the stands, and you can see for 100 miles, and you can see it coming, and nobody there notices.
Right. So that's my nitpicking moment. It's for the movie. That was my eye roll moment. These types of movies are full of eye roll moments, and I give them passes. In a lot of ways, because it's a disaster movie, and disaster movies are going to have a lot of ridiculousness in them for the sake of the movie. So he gets, I don't want to say free pass, but he gets a pass. But I mean, we go, okay, come on. Especially the dude in the motel lobby bitching to the lobby guy, well, the power's out, the TV's out. I was like, dude, there's a tornado. What? And then he gets in his car. That's my nitpick moment right there, is that little sequence. And then it jumps to, okay, they're going to save this mother and daughter, and I forget it almost immediately right down the moment.
My nitpick is after that.
Right. So, like, little things like that.
You're the judge on Law and Order who says, I'll allow it.
Yeah, I allow it because it's ridiculous. The first Twister is full of way more
crazy
moments. So that's why it's like if they're only going to have this few of nitpicky worthy moments for a disaster movie, that's why it gets a pass because that's where I think they learned. It's like, okay, well, people have that nostalgia for that's a cow. I think that's the same cow. They didn't have any of those types of moments in here. We still got our twins. We got some callbacks, very minor callbacks. I will say, I know I'm rambling, but there's a lot of things I've meant to say that's in my head, especially with Kate's costuming. It was a nice throwback to Helen Hunt's character. You could see the full inspiration behind Helen Hunt's original dress and what she wore in the original Twister to Kate's, what she was wearing in this one. Little things like that could pick up on. I enjoyed it. It was horrifying. I saw it in Dolby. The sound design was incredible. If you can see in a theater, there is meant for you to hear very well, to the point that I thought people were talking behind me. It was actually when they're at the gas station and everyone's talking and crowded around. It felt like surround sound. So I was getting ready to shush people.
Sound editing.
No, it was in the movie. It's like, whoa, I'm looking behind me in different directions. That's how well it was produced. So with that, I give it a 7.5. It is hard for me to go higher than that for a disaster movie, but I enjoyed myself. It's a true summer blockbuster. It's going to do really well. Glenn Powell is a 100% star.
All right. I want to pick up on the soundtrack part and not add too much more to it, but one of the things I really liked about Twisters 2024 was the fact that I think it gave a much more respected version of Middle America, and it didn't turn it into a cartoonish stereotype. And I think the soundtrack and the casting of this movie contributed to that, and didn't give us something goofy that makes fun, like a coastal, Hollywood or New York kind of thing, where they kind of typically don't portray Tornado Alley as, anything more than just a bunch of yokels. And I thought this gave him a lot more respect. I really loved Kate's character. Daisy Edgar-Jones, I think, played it really well. I love to see characters like this. Like, she's a scientist. She's accomplished, but she's a real person. She's got flaws. She's ambitious, yet she's complicated. I also love the fact that she and Tyler, while there is that romantic spark and scientific respect for each other that comes through this movie, there's a romantic element to that, but it wasn't the focus.
Right.
It was just, yes, it also happens to be there. And Anthony Ramos, I think, I'm just a big fan of his. I think he did a really good job of this movie and played a really important character that made a transition that was, I think, really well done over the course of this movie. So it's a perfect movie. It's the movie that you're going to, anybody that goes to see this movie is going to come back and tell their friends and their family and go like, we had a great time. That was really good. And so I think this movie is going to have legs because people are going to be talking so well about it. Yes, disaster movies are ridiculous. I will give you that far off storm that they never noticed. My part was I was brought to a place outside of the theater. There's an action scene where like the metal tower full of, I don't know, fuel or something.
Water tower.
Yeah, but they're at a refinery that's
that one.
It's on fire, and
fire tornado.
Yeah, and fire tornado was bad, was silly, and
they can fly now.
And then there's other things that just reminded me of I don't know if it was like Disney or Universal that had a Twister. Like
attraction,
a ride, whatever, where it reminded me of those. But it was very briefly. So with that in mind, I'm going to give this a slightly better review than I do most disaster movies. And I'm going to give this a solid 8 for so satisfying of a movie experience. That's what you go to movies for. Most people do. And I came out of there like, I had a great time. So, solid.
So that's what matters.
Yeah.
Two things to nitpick on.
Here we go.
All right.
Because one piggybacks off of
Okay.
Same cluster of time, okay?
It's just the way he presented it. It's so here we go moment.
It's almost like they wrote all that in one sitting. Because you had the problem with the rodeo. Jim can say, I'll give it a pass. I don't give it a pass because if you're
Gopher doesn't give passes.
I don't give passes. That's true. When they save the family, which is a great scene, by the way. I think there was some realism in the sense that there's always this arrogant douchebag that's gonna why isn't this working and blah blah blah,
and he dies.
Yeah, right. But I'm saying, there's that they showed that part of it. There's an arrogant outsider who comes in, doesn't respect the storm. Okay, but anyway, so that's all great. They save the mother and the child. They go into this. She because she's an expert. She knows. Okay, this pool there's no water in it. Let's go in that. And then that bus or whatever it is comes collapsing on top of them, and it actually protects them. Okay, They come out, and they've just been through this traumatic experience. They've checked on her. Are you okay? Yeah, we're going to be okay. Okay. And they come out. She is dingy and gross, as you would be after such a traumatic event in a dirty old pool. Okay.
Right.
He comes out. His shirt's tucked in.
Yeah.
His shirt is all perfectly kept.
Somebody got to remain pretty.
There's one maybe hair up like this to show that he's been through it. But and he was on top of her, by the way. Stupid.
He must have great product in his hair.
So dumb.
It's giving the Shack of Knives at the end of Twister.
Yes. Who lives here? Yeah, it's not good.
Nothing happens to them.
So look, again, I know that's like one thing, but that took me out of the movie. Right? So
Did you get back into it pretty quickly?
Yes,
though?
pretty quickly.
Okay,
for sure.
Okay.
That's what's important.
I had a problem early on. It's my second nitpick. I had a problem early on that they didn't mention that she had PTSD. There was no acknowledgement of that. I don't know if that was a clever way to like the audience will know. Who cares? We don't have to call it out, which I can see. Or because she's going through all this stuff and he's yelling at her like, "Get your head in the game! And this is our moment, and we got to put these 3 things up." And she's just like freaking out, clearly having an anxiety attack, and she's reliving her past. And this is the first time and he knows this, her first time she's been out there since her friends died and her boyfriend died. And she's still. We just saw great directing, by the way. Quick tangent. When she's laying in bed and he turns over and he goes, "I got you." And then she wakes up and he's gone. And the way they did it was awesome.
It hits you.
Yeah, for sure. It was really great. So my point is that like she's been through all this stuff. This is her first time out there since then. She won't talk to her mom. He's pried her out. He had to pull teeth to get her out there. And yet there's still no mention of like, look, I know you've been through stuff, but you only have a week, and some sort of rationale that somebody would throw at her. There's no acknowledgement of PTSD, no acknowledgement of any kind of mental instability or care for her mental health. None. There's no mention.
I thought it was kind of assumed. I picked up on it.
I get your point. I understand your point, but I took it as assumed.
In 1996 and maybe even 2005, maybe even 2015, now that I think about it, I totally get it. In 2024, when it meant mental health, and people are taking days off from work just because my mental health's not good right now. I'm gonna take a day off work. Like that's a common thing now. There's no way it does not get mentioned in a present day film like this. No way. That's my point. Okay, now
Unless the fact that she doesn't acknowledge it and she won't talk to anybody about it, like so,
which is a telltale sign of PTSD, mental health, PTSD.
Yeah, but
what we need to do is flash into her mind and show anxiety running the board.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what we need to do.
I think they did with the dream. But anyway, this is your time.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Okay, on to my last thoughts. The CGI was great. Wire work and effects were awesome. Loved all that. We get to see the genesis of her emotional and psychological struggle. Again, as you mentioned, there was more here than there was in the previous film. Yes, we saw Helen Hunt's character's dad die, and that was traumatic and whatever. But we got way more of it here. We felt it more here, and I think there's something to be said for that. If you're going to do a disaster movie, you can do a cookie cutter, right, disaster movie and call it a day and be fine because you're going to make lots of money, okay? But they showed the emotional depth. I really enjoyed that. Here's my last point, and this is what I've been waiting for all week. On my drive home from the theater, I realized what Twisters was. Twisters is a Britney Spears album.
What?
Britney is not going to probably win a Grammy. She has won one, but she's probably not going to win a Grammy. And real musicians who play their own instruments, there's a full band, and,
sure.
and they're going to we respect her for what she is, but it's not real music, right? Okay, so, but holy hell, do the masses love that music? Top 40 radio, selling platinum records. She'll be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame one day.
She's a cultural icon.
Cultural icon, thank you. But it's still just like somebody else writes her songs and she goes in a booth and sings them. An engineer punches up her voice. There's got beats and kind of things that are already put in there for her. And then so it's kind of like that. Okay. Twisters is the same thing in the sense that general movie going audiences are going to freaking love this movie. It's awesome. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's still an above average action movie. 7.0.
Does he just want to bring out Britney Spears fans now? Why does he want to attack fan bases?
I had a screener in Atlanta, I was staying where I work in Morganton, Georgia, which is about an hour 10 away.
The Boondocks.
Yeah, in Blue Ridge Mountains. So I had a lot of time on the way home by myself to think about what my review was going to be when this time came, when we were actually recorded and sat down. I wrote my review on the Untitled Film Project Pod.com, all that. And I had several thoughts. But that one seemed like the winner. I was like, okay, it's fun. It's awesome. It's big. It's intense. Everyone's going to love this. But that doesn't make it special. And I think that's a Britney Spears album.
Is it also Chinese food where you're really loving it in the moment, but a half hour later you're hungry?
Another great analogy.
Inappropriate.
No, it's just the food. It's like, fair food is also going to make you maybe throw up.
I think fair food is most likely going to make you have diarrhea.
All right, it's time to answer the big question. We'll tell you our answers, but we really want to hear yours in the comments and social media.
Get the big question going. Isn't that what he does in the movie?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, all right.
But you're just not Glenn Powell.
No, definitely not. About 150 pounds heavier than Glenn Powell?
That's not the only thing.
And not quite.
I thought you were going wrap it up.
I was like, we just hit record.
But you're giving the rodeo tornado wrangler you went.
Okay, the big question is, there's so many different types of disasters out there, whether it's weather or climate with weather or the earth or aliens or whatever. Sure. What's your favorite disaster movie? Jim, we will start with you.
Okay. My favorite disaster movie actually has another movie about it with the word disaster in it. My favorite disaster movie is The Room, starring Tommy Wiseau. That movie
is a disaster.
It's a disaster. It's so much so that they call him the disaster artist in the movie that came out later, in wide release. So if you've not seen The Room, it was made in 2003. It's regarded as like a modern classic of a terrible movie. Tommy Wiseau, this mysterious person who we still don't know a whole lot about, decides to direct and star in his own movie, and it's awful. So awful that it has so many great memes, so many great lines that people has become part of the cultural landscape. So like, while I enjoyed that movie for all the reasons they never intended, I'm going to name it my favorite disaster movie.
I did not expect him to go that direction.
Remember, Bradford, when you gave us an answer on one of these, and Jim and I both basically punted on the question. We were like, well, we're not going to match that. So it was on the Civil War episode. Why would California and Texas band together?
Yeah.
And you came up with a fast food analogy, and we were both like, wow, ours sucks. That's what this is like. My answer is Independence Day. Because it's the most rewatchable disaster movie for me. I can watch it at any time. It's so good, so fun. But it's not a perfect movie. There, see? Not even close. That's my whole answer.
Oh, but they're different categories, apples and oranges. I love your answer. Tell us.
But you lead with mine, and then you finish with that. You don't start with it.
But what Jim did, though, is he twisted my broad question.
I did. Because you really left it open.
I did leave it open.
And I gave a different interpretation.
This explains why Jim was giggling like a school child when I mentioned it, because it clicked in his head almost immediately.
1 second.
It did.
Yep.
And he's like,
I was like, Bradford comes up with the question. This is before we go on the air. We go first start taping, and I go,
finalize everything.
Right, yeah. And I go, and we don't talk about our answers, just like our movies. We don't talk about answers, but we come up with a big question, and Bradford comes up with it, and I go, who needs time? And Jim's like, I'm good. It's
right off the bat.
Sparkle in his eye. He knew that he was going with The Room.
But Independence Day, I love your answer.
Don't try to stretch it.
No.
Yours is the answer.
No, but what do you love about Independence Day? What is it that makes it like so rewatchable for you?
I couldn't even tell you. The performances, I guess. I don't really know.
Okay, Independence Day is one of my honorable mentions, so I will say.
Okay.
It's entirely quotable.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun.
It is insanely ridiculous.
It is.
It is a little patriotic.
A little bit patriotic.
Yes. Yeah.
But more than anything, it's just fun and quotable. Will Smith, this is like peak. Another one of my honorable mentions would be The Wave.
Okay.
I did not see The Wave. Tell me about The Wave.
Netflix, I believe it's Norwegian, so it's all subtitled and everything, but it's about a huge tidal wave that attacks a bay town and everything, too.
Is it better than 2012?
Yes. Yes. Sure. Again, you have to watch it with subtitles, but it is captivating.
I can't wait to watch it.
There's heart in it. I think it's from like 2016, 2017, something like that. So obviously didn't get theatrical release here.
Yeah.
But I heard plenty about it on social media, and I am curious. I'm going to watch it. Really well done.
All right.
Again, when I talk about heart and empathy in a disaster movie, it has that. And that's what I would need to connect a little bit more of something to feel and you want the characters to fight for. Again, why I enjoyed Twisters. They're fighting for something. They're fighting to save people's lives, fighting for each other. They come together, things like that. Just like Independence Day on a very different spectrum.
Right.
They find a way to come together. And my favorite moment, really, when I start getting chills in Independence Day, is when they start sending Morse code to all the different countries.
Yes.
And they show how you have people that usually are, like in Israel, people that typically are fighting against each other and killing each other, coming together to save their planet.
Right.
You have the Russians. You have all these other people from different parts of the world coming together. It's like, that's patriotism to me, too.
Yeah.
They have one sole purpose, and that's survival, and they're going to come together for it.
Humankind.
Fight for each other, yes. So, my favorite, though, and I don't watch it probably as much as Independence Day, because it doesn't get aired as much on TV.
Yeah, I took a rewatchable angle on mine.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
Now, but still, I rewatch Independence Day every July 4th. I watch Independence Day. That is my thing. I will watch that.
That's a good tradition.
But there's always that battle between Armageddon and Deep Impact. Came out right back to back, right?
All right. One's the muscle and adrenaline movie. The other's a thinking movie.
Right. I prefer the thinking movie of Deep Impact.
Yeah, buddy.
I like because, and the thing is, both movies are stacked with a cast.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
Deep Impact. You have Robert Duvall, Tay Leone, Elijah Wood, Morgan Freeman, just to name a few. Jon Favreau is even in it. I like Deep Impact more because of the science more behind it. Not saying that's not ridiculous in its moments, but I feel like there's more science involved in the movie and more of a coming together and fighting for each other from what the people are doing out in space. They were trying to blow the thing up and figure that out, to what they're doing on Earth, to, Elijah battling to get Lily Sobiesky's character and her family there. I just felt more of a connection. Armageddon, lots of fun. Fun movie to watch, fun disaster movie. I feel deeper connection to Deep Impact. That's why it is my favorite.
So what you're saying is Armageddon is the Britney Spears of...
All right. Well, what do you think? Let us know on social media. What's your favorite disaster movie? And also tell us, what did you think of Twisters 2024?
Find us on social media, at social media.
That's all you're going to get.
I wonder if anybody has an account at social media. I'm taking it if they didn't.
Thank you for listening to the Untitled Film Project Podcast. To support the show, please rate, review, follow, and subscribe. Original music by Jeremy Schwartz. Special thanks to the Music City Film Critics Association. Editing and post-production by Jeremy K. Gover. Voiceover by Chad Bennett.